see pictures. I already got it. You start
It already lost before
Who's Stevie? Let's see how it is.
Get that.
Why?
And you want more, just head to the left there and you get more.
Where's the left?
The Burroughs football program will come back.
Yeah, you can't see.
Because I guarantee you, at the freshman level and the sophomore level, you have been taught the right things to do. These are three fine coaches sitting up here. I go back to 1958, Bob Rossett and his father. His brother and I were very best friends. And I went to every game that Bob Rossett played in his senior year. I can remember attending practice this year and him telling the boys, you've got to put out on every play. He said, I can only remember one play that I didn't put out 100%, and that's because I was hurt. And I'll tell you something right now. There was one guy there that knew that was true, and that was myself, because I seen him play. This guy put out 100% every play. Coach's dream, and he's also a player's dream. He's a fine coach. And so is his father, and so is my friend Carl Bledsoe. And I'll turn this program over to all three of them right now.
We'll start off with the freshman year. The freshman season this year was a little disappointing to me, and I'm sure there was Coach Campbell. We can't be here tonight because he had a previous obligation to coach the basketball team, and basketball tonight. Just a little synopsis of the season for us. Our season record was 3-5. Excuse me. To give a little rundown on the games that were played this year. Our first game was against Barstow, and we went over to Barstow with very high hopes. Of course, it's the first and next to the last time all year that we had everybody on the freshman team either healthy or not on the sidelines for some reason or another. We got beat 2-0 in Barstow. It's a completely defensive football game, and we got beat on a bad snap, which is something physical that happens in a football game. Snap happened over our punter's head and went rolling all the way, I think, about halfway to victory goal. But it's one of those things that happen preseason game. We learned something from it. We came back the next week. We had a bye because Bishop High School didn't have the freshmen supposedly to play us. I think that they've been beat up so bad by the sophomore team the night before Bishop that they didn't want to bring the freshman team to play us on the Saturday morning, so they forfeited to us. I didn't count that in the season record because I never felt that forfeit was a win because we didn't play. Next game was against Forest Hill, and we got our first victory of the season. It was kind of scary when we first ran on the field because it was raining. I think it was about to hail, and Forest Hill had about 75 football players warming up down there in the field. We had 33 or whatever it was. A lot of people probably don't know where Chicago Hills is. Both ways out that far, for various reasons that I don't need to go into at the banquet. Hopefully, they learned a lesson. I know I did in that ball game, because there's a team that definitely we were better, and we ended up getting beat 14-0. Then we take on probably the next powerhouse in the Golden Way, Hill High School. We put in a couple of defenses on. We got a film on them. Is what happened. tell you, they were something else. And he runs under a 10 flat 100, and he is now the leader of the varsity special teams in the CIF playoffs. His coach, the varsity coach from Palmdale, called him a man among men, or let's say a man among boys on a freshman level. So the Palmdale coach even said, hey, I didn't mean, I'm not trying to run up the score. The score was 32-0. He said, but you scared me at halftime. When we came out, we had some of our kids were very fired up. We took the ball and just marched right down the field on them. I think we fumbled on about the 3-yard line this time. And they only had 8 shutouts out of their 10 games this year, so they were a very fine football team. He said we scared them. And that pleased me because we're still not full strength with our football team. And all week in practice, we've been in non-contact practice all week, and we thought maybe, hey, Coach Campbell and I decided let's try something different. So we did, and he took the defense, or offense, and I took the defense. And I don't know if that's made any difference or not, but it was an entirely different football team on the field against Forge Hill. Their coach accused me of bringing some sophomores on our team. He said, I've seen your films for 3 games, and this is not the same team that's played anybody in the local league. And I just said, well, this is the first time all year we've had our football team together and playing in positions where they should be playing. And they played up to the whistle on both. He started forcing offense till he hurt his knee. Next player is also a first-year player and probably didn't play as much as I wish they could. I wish everyone could get to play, every down. But has a lot of athletic talent, ended up getting hurt late in the year, but learned a lot about football this year, and I expect him to be an excellent football player before he's done. Steve Anderson. Next player started for us on offense in 3 different positions. He played center, guard, and fullback at different times in the year. And on defense, played outside and inside linebacker. I don't know, is Alex Beltran here? Okay, Alex isn't here. Alex did a real fine job for us this year. Next player is, I feel, after watching films of almost everybody in the league play against us, this young man may be one of the top offensive linemen in the Goldie League this year as a freshman, and has a big future playing football at Burroughs High School. He also started for us at outside linebacker and a monster man in different defenses. Vern Bennett. Vern? Okay. Next is Jeff Blackwell. Jeff was a first-year player also. Played some safety, wide receiver for us. A lot of talent, just learning the game still. He's a good player in the future. Next player played offensive guard for us and defensive tackle. And I noticed a tendency of teams this year to completely run away from this particular defensive tackle. And he did a heck of a good job. He's a big kid. And there isn't anybody tougher on our team this year than Jerry Bryant. Is Jerry here tonight? He's probably wrestling too. I think we have a whole bunch of them on the wrestling team.
Yeah, they're under wrestling.
Okay, the next player. Yes, Jerry's father. Jerry, I guess, is senior. I'm not sure. Anyway, Jerry is a businessman. He owns in your current market, among other things, Next player here probably has as much talent as any young man I've ever seen at this level. I may be wrong, but I think he weighs about 180 pounds and 185 pounds. He's got hands and feet bigger than anybody in here. He can catch anything thrown around him. When he makes up his mind that he's going to play, there's nobody better than he is. And it's just, I couldn't get it out of him all year. I know Coach Ross will have him next year, or varsity, one of the two. If somebody gets it out of him, there'll be nobody better when he wants to play. Ivy Calvin. Okay, the next player played guard and a little bit of defense for us as an outside linebacker. Did a fine job for us. Is still just learning football again. We have quite a few that are just learning how to play. Leland Carter. Leland here? No? Next player is, I don't think I've seen him because I guarantee I know his face around here smiling, walking around giving me a bad time. Aaron had a real outstanding year on and off. Like I say, against Dubuque Hills, he had a dream game. I think he scored 3 touchdowns and played a real fine defensive ball game for us too. Ended up, I think he finally got to start at quarterback the final game against Fort Sill, and ended up throwing, I think, 3 or 4 touchdown passes, having an outstanding game running the football also. And Aaron's got a real good future as a quarterback or other places. But we didn't get him at quarterback till late. Like I say, he started the season at guard for us, and then went to fullback, and then went to quarterback. So Aaron's a talented young man, and I wish him the best. Okay. The next young man is probably, if we gave awards away, which I guess we don't, as far as the high school goes, we probably have to be the most improved player on the freshman team from starting here to finish. He did all our kicking for us, and he could always kick the football. I guess he played soccer a little bit, but I mean, he could kick the ball very well, but really didn't know that much about football when he first came out, and learned real quick that football was a game of hitting people, and all of a sudden he got to like to hit people, and he ended up playing a lot of football for us in defensive tackle and nose guard. And if I had to, if we gave awards like that away, then definitely the most improved player on our team would have been Kevin Colley. Kevin? Next player is David Deanza. David was another one that hasn't played a lot of football, but gave it 100% effort. If there's anything such as 110%, David probably gave that every day of practice and during the game. He ended up starting for us at tackle one game of the season just because of hard work. And David's one of the kids you like to have around all the time. He's got, he needs to work on his strength and his speed, but he's one of those kids that will do that, and I think will end up being an outstanding high school football player. Is David here? Hey, David's a basketball. Next player I've coached now for 2 years. He was on the youth league team also, and he's played anywhere from wide receiver to corner to safety for us. And David has been, he's got all the tools in the world, and I've just not been able to get everything, probably the 100% out of him that he could have done. And I think David's been one of the outstanding players before he's done at Burroughs High School. David Gaston. Next player got a late start with us. These physicals they have now, he came out and said, well, I can't get a physical coach till October the 12th or something. I said, what? It's over 3 weeks away. Well, anyway, he got a late start, and he stuck it out, he did a good job, didn't get to play as much as I know he wished he could, and will play in future years, but we need to get you physical next year, Jeannie, before, October 15th, before we play 4 ball games. Jeannie Easton. He's also one of the strongest and can move for a big kid. He's 6'5", about 240. And when he decided he wanted to play, when I would yell and scream at him at halftime and tell him he wasn't doing anything, he would play. So I started in the last couple of games yelling and screaming at him before the game started. He did a good job for us. And he's just growing, just starting to grow, and he's going to be a great football player if he keeps it up. And I think he enjoyed football. It was his first year. It was Micah Hall. And I know he's not here. Like I said, we probably have food left. Next is another first-year player that is really just beginning to learn the game. Has a lot of speed and good hands. Could become a good football player if he'll stick with it and hard work. Is Sergio Hernandez. Is Sergio here? Basketball also.
Yeah, in the basketball.
Okay, the next player is he was our one of our starting offensive tackles on and off. Another first-year player, we had quite a few of them on the freshman team this year. Jeff Jones did a good job for us at the tackle position. Jeff?
Do they have a soccer team?
He's in soccer.
We're good for soccer. Believe me. It's too tight.
Well, the next player here is,
That's a game where you don't have to be
I
good.
guess I can tell the story. When I first coached this young man, it was last year in the youth league program out on the base, and his nickname was Sissy, because he would not hit anybody. And one of my assistant coaches nicknamed him Sissy. Well, this year he started for us the last game of the season at outside linebacker and probably hit people harder than anybody on the football team. And he started for us all year when he was eligible to play, and he can be as good as he wants to be. Seth did a heck of a job, and probably if you gave an award for the hit of the year against Saugus, he hit kids that I know is still wondering what number Seth had on. Seth's award. Okay, next player is another first-year player. He played tackle for us this year. I don't like to get to play as much as he would have liked to have played. But he's a good-sized young man. He's learning about the game. And for the people who don't know, football is an entirely different world for people who've never played it before when you first put the pads on. And I know Mike can testify to that. Mike Lunston, he played some tackle for us. He's a good football player. Here's one that drove Coach Campbell and I crazy every week because we know we should be playing him, but we didn't know where. Because he tries hard, he's got talent, he's just one of those, where do we put him type players. Didn't play as much as he should have, and in my opinion, and in Coach Campbell's opinion, we just didn't find the right spot for him yet. Peter Martinez. Peter? The next player we have here is another first-year player that was tore up his knee at a church dance. Not in football, at a church dance. And I think he's going to be an excellent football player because he wasn't, he liked contact and get go out and chat me. Next player is another young man who got a late start with us. Very good sized young man. He used to work on his speed and would have played probably a lot more for us if he would have been out at the beginning of the year. James Miller. Is James here tonight? Next player we have here is one of our, I guess you could call it our team clowns too. He always did it in a way. He kept himself out of trouble most of the time. He started for us at nose guard. He started for us the last game of the season against Quartz Hill. They had a 6'5" receiver that I didn't want to have David or one of our 5'9", 5'8" cornerbacks trying to cover, getting frustrated all day. So Murph is about 6'2", so I put him on him, and Murph did a heck of a job. He never played DD all year, And this kid didn't know where he was at because he was hitting it before he got off the line of scrimmage. And Mark did an excellent job for us all year after getting hurt the first game at Barstow, getting a pinched nerve in his neck, having to go to the hospital. Came back and did an excellent job. Is Eddie here tonight? No? Another excellent one, okay. Next player is another one that came out late for us, but has played quite a bit of football in the youth league and ended up doing an excellent job for us when he wasn't in trouble. For what we call ditching practice on Mondays. Started for us, I think, every game of the year except when he wasn't in trouble. One of the smaller players we have does an excellent job. He played corner for us, played strong safety for us, and also played slot for us. I don't know anybody by his name, but Angelo Pepper. Jojo. The next player, this young man can stay away from injuries. He can end up being a great football player. I've coached him for 2 years now, and if it's a broken elbow or a concussion, and the reason he gets these things is because he has no regard for anything except tackling people. He told me at Barstow on the bus on the way home, yeah, I got a terrible headache, coach, but I feel fine. It ends up he had a concussion from the first half, played the whole second half with it. I don't think it's Kenneth here. As I said, Kenneth, he couldn't get a physical, so I think it was almost, it seemed like to me it was November. But he sat and watched, and the kids kind of picked on him a little bit. Maybe the coaches did too, I don't know. Kenneth would be a good football player if he wanted to, but he needs to put out a little bit more effort by getting to practice 45 minutes early instead of 45 minutes late. Okay. Next is another first-year player that came a long, long ways near the end of the season. I looked at the last game film that we have, and he did an excellent job in that film. And another one that came out and worked real hard all year long. Really didn't know what the game was all about at the beginning. And I think he's going to be an excellent football player. Burroughs played defensive tackle and offensive guard, Mike Washington. The next player I have here in front of me, I could talk half the night about, so I'll make it quick because he's not even here. But to me, this young man is the perfect example of a young man that wants to play football more than anything that I've ever seen him play. He never missed a practice. He was always, I don't think he was ever late for a practice as I can remember. He was one of our team leaders, played anywhere I asked him to play, played quarterback for us early in the year. He's not a quarterback, but he gave it his effort there. Played middle linebacker for us all year, led the team in tackles. Between him and I, they both, I would say they're probably pretty equal in rushing yards. He just did everything that was asked for him, of him. And he's going to be, you're going to hear his name a lot in the future for Burroughs High School Ridgecrest. Strong at the end of the year, where I noticed it was in one of our, we got together with the sophomores a few times this year and tried to help each other, I should say, we would run a defense that, say, Indio was running, or some team of sophomores were playing, especially when we didn't have a game. And I noticed that a couple of times we had a good effort from this young man in those scrimmages, and he probably should have played a little bit more than he did. And of course, I say that about all the kids, but it's true. You like them all to get to play every game because you come out there and put out all that effort in practice and don't get to play a lot. But I think it'll pay off eventually. Our Josie played safety for us. Larry was another first-year player. He's got a lot of size, and I think Larry was just learning what football was all about near the end of the year, too. Like I say, probably the most unique experience in the world is to get hit for the first time in football and wondering, what the heck am I doing out here? And I know Larry said that, and he stuck it out all year, and I think Larry will be a good football player before he's done at Burroughs. Larry. Made a mess of the tables and everything else up here. I'd like to just leave this team with a couple little things. Just this week I learned from a friend of mine that he was always talking football, and I didn't really ever pay too much attention to him. He brought me a book this week, and it's about a little high school in Michigan called Hudson High School. They hold the national record for 73 straight victories without being beaten. Without being tied or beat. They have a 500 enrollment, and their township has only 2,800 people in it. They set the state record first with 43 straight victories in Michigan, and then they set the national record for 73 straight. And their coach, his name is Saylor, Tom Saylor. He was asked to come speak at a big coaching clinic with all the big boys there, the college coaches and everything. And they wanted him to tell the secret of his winning at Hudson High School. And they said, well, what do you run on offense? And he said, well, you'll laugh at me if I put down the board because it's so simple. And they said, well, what about defense? And he said the same thing. He said, it's so simple. It's an old Notre Dame 4-4. And he said, it's simple. And they said, well, he said, I will talk, if you would like me to, about winning and why we win, the secret of our winning. And he walked up on the board at this big clinic in front of about 1,000 coaches and put on the board, effort is everything. Effort is everything. And I read the book, and reading the book still, and I looked at that and I thought, you know, it makes a lot of sense. He also, one thing that he reiterates over and over to his team, it's we, not I. And if I could leave this team with anything, it would be effort is everything. I think that's a great statement. And I believe this football team can be as good as they want to be, and that says it all. Effort is everything. After I get done here, I've just got one more quick little presentation to make here. And this goes back a lot of years, and it's about one of the guys that's putting this on for us tonight. I don't know how many of you know that he's from Nebraska. I'm from Oklahoma. And you know, one time a year they meet and play a game that's more of a war than it is a football game. And fortunately for me, 11 out of the last, or no, 12 out of the last 16 years, Oklahoma's come out victor. And we've been going at each other. This has been going on for numerous years now. And I just got a little presentation I'd like to make to Tom Matt. Oklahoma, by the way, beat Nebraska 20-17 this last week. So I'd like to make this presentation to Tom. Another one from the wall. Thank you, and good luck to all those freshman football players. Remember, effort is everything. Coach?
Feel real uncomfortable with this thing. Can you hear me all right without it? Why don't everybody stand up for a second stretch? other things to do. And Grandpa's not used to being on the podium here, and he's going to get up here and say a few things shortly. That of course, everything. I'd like to thank Mr. Ryan, and especially Tommy, for putting this on. Having words, having a few kind things to say about me. Somewhat of an exaggeration, probably built upon my exaggeration. If I said what he said I said, I wasn't thinking real clearly. Nobody plays 100% every play. If you believe that, you believe, well, where does the sun come up? Come on, you know my favorite cliche, the sun comes up in the west, right? I will say this, though, that there was one play that I know I did play real hard on, and I got hurt. I learned something from that. The most serious injury I ever suffered, and I know that I specifically led up to miss somebody and learn from that. Our stat girls here, I don't believe so. They mentioned coming. Didn't think I saw. Coach Everett can't be here tonight. Our assistant coach handle our defense and coach our linebackers and defensive ends most of the time. Offensive line. Is he winning his first wrestling match? I don't know. Steve's shaking his head. No, that's a Steve didn't win his first wrestling match. We didn't stay at the end, did we? I'm sure they got a victory tonight. Great job, and I'll pay mention this at the end. Make sure that if he did something special, again, you take the time, a little bit of effort. I know it's not cool, it's not something that teenagers do a lot of, but go out of your way to say thank you. Because he put in a lot of effort, a lot of time for you people. You know, we don't get paid very much, if anything, and most of us would probably do it if we didn't get paid anything anyway. That's not why we do this. And anyway, I don't know folks at least at high school level. But those little words mean a lot. We come often and ask me, and that means a lot to us. So please make the effort. The other fellow that helped us out is up here this year. And I don't know if I'm going to get to do this again. We don't ever talk about this much in the off season, but somebody did me a big favor 2 years ago, and they decided they didn't need me in coaching the varsity level anymore and sent me back to sophomores. It was one of the nicest things that's ever happened to me recently, because I like being down here when I was here before, and kind of spun my wheels at the varsity level. Believe me, you do a lot more teaching at the freshman and sophomore level, and I meant to say something. Is Coach Bledsoe here? You guys are really lucky to have somebody like that to be such a stabilizing influence. We've had so many people that, 1 year out of high school come out, and you were lucky to have such a fine role model, somebody that's had experience coaching. I don't think you can appreciate that right now, but I would be willing to bet before you're out of high school we'll be in the same situation again, and you'll appreciate how lucky you were to have somebody with Coach Campbell's experience, especially Coach Bledsoe's football experience. That was a real blessing, and if I'm lucky enough to be doing the same thing next year, I know I'm going to see the effects of it, that you guys are going to be able to do some things that maybe otherwise might not. But I got to introduce my right-hand man here. And I hope we get to do this again. And that's why I say it's been especially pleasing for me, because he's my dad and everything. But there are some things that you don't share with your father or your mother, and it's just different. Especially somebody like me who's so wrapped up in athletics for most of his life. It's one thing to watch your son do something, I suppose, but it's another thing to do it with him. And we don't talk about this. I think that this has really been a godsend. It's done a lot for me, and I think it's done more for him. He doesn't get a cent for this, and you know how much of his pocketbook he puts into this. Every time you come to practice, he's got a new device in his kit. Right, Philip? Got to keep track of all the grandpa's junk. And I can't keep track of all the organizing things he's given me that I never use, and I'm always losing. So he's appreciated out there. Whatever he teaches you the skills, it's certainly surpassed by what he teaches you, I think, otherwise. I can be a little extra nasty out there, because I know that there'll be somebody, when my back's turned, that'll be patting the kid on the head and say, hey, he didn't really mean that, he's doing it to help you. If he didn't like you, he wouldn't say anything. Or if he didn't think he could do anything, he wouldn't, waste his breath. You're all right, I think you're great, just, hang in there. Every team needs somebody like that. Unfortunately, when you have two coaches, it's hard to do, especially if you can in there with the other animals for 6 hours a day. And you're frustrated when you come out in the field and tired. And he's scratching and dreaming about it all day. He does a good job, and I just hope we get to do this again. I don't know. You got to understand, this guy's made it through a world war and 2 heart attacks, open heart surgery. I don't know how long you've been retired. He can't even remember. He's making more money now. That's why he doesn't want to remember. He remembered, when he was working. So what I'd ask of you too is when you see Grandpa, and you will see him a lot. If you ever missed a Burroughs basketball game, I don't think in 25 years he's missed a home game, let alone maybe an away game. He's there every football game, along with Grandma, who's there more often than he is. I don't know where she is tonight. The soap operas are on the evening, right? I don't know what she's doing. Say thank you, or just say hi. Just wink at him a little bit. You probably want to do it because he'll talk your arm off. That's his aim. And I think he wants to say 1 or 2 things here. He has some people that he specially handled, and actually he's a big hand anyway, as most of you know. So I'll give you the microphone for a second here. Coach Grandpa.
He must be trying to get a loan or something after all that fire. Really though, he's my son, but this is an unbiased opinion. I think he's one of the best football coaches in the country. Of course, with my help, he should be. All I had to coach out there was the receivers, practically, and sometimes I got to coach the twos, we call their inside linemen on defense. So this is really enjoyable. Wide receivers as a group are a bunch of characters. You either got some great big guy like Jason Romsville. Not Jason DeLeon. Everybody named Jason is a wide receiver. Just want to say a few things about all of these. It's really enjoyable coaching them. It made me look good because they were starting good. Altogether, these wide receivers scored 15 touchdowns and accounted for 1,166 yards, which isn't bad for sophomores. Start off with one of the real characters on this outfit, Steve Hill. Steve got hurt after, I think it was the second game.
Warming up for the first game.
Yeah, warming up for the first game on a real freak accident that should have ever happened. Or he might have been the best wide receiver probably we ever saw out there. As it turned out, he was real good on defense too. Another great man was Jason Romsville. This guy is from Texas, which says something. But Jason would have been probably more outstanding if he could have come out of practice at 2 o'clock, 6:30 p.m. like the rest of them. But he registered late, so he had to come out at 3. So it turns out all our wide receivers got a lot of practice in between 2:30 and 3 o'clock. So that left him on a handicap. But he's going to be real good on the varsity, I guarantee you. Jason DeLeon, he isn't here tonight, but you can't say much, but you can't, this guy is really something. This is the best college potential I've ever seen in Burroughs. If he keeps his nose to the ground, he's going to academic. Jason, as you look at your sheet, scored 10 touchdowns and had 38 completions for 733 yards. That is really good. Another player, if I could name a most improved player award, this would be the easiest award I've ever given out. Archie Football. Did I pronounce that right? Football.
Yes, sir.
Archie, stand up. This guy came out with no football experience, and he's no heavyweight, as you can see. But this is the most improved player I think I've ever helped coach. What he did out there. He played both offense and defense, and when you get hit by 110 pounds like this guy carries, you'd be surprised how many people he really jolted. He also scored a touchdown on an interception, and finally he scored a touchdown on a pass reception, which he caught quite a few. One reason that Cabona became so darn good was he had a private coach out there, a kid named Mike Ashley, who got hurt. I think it was his fifth game, broke his wrist, and Mike really has great potential. This guy looked like the best receiver we'd ever seen out there. But after he got hurt, he came out for practice, he helped me, and he devoted himself to Bowman, who really needed a lot of help. I think that's the reason he came out so darn good. You have to admire a guy like this. He never gave up out there. He was, you know, he's out there with his wrist in a cast, and he worked with our receivers all the time, specializing in a couple of them. Then we have another guy named Chris, I can't ever pronounce his name, Joe Meddy. This guy turned out to be terrific on defense. I don't know why. He was pretty good on receiving passes. But once in a while on pass practice, we put up some of our receivers on defense and tell them that they make the guy that's trying out for that position look miserable. Why, you know, you might get the position yourself. But he was real good at that. I had a lot of help from Rick Kelly and Tom Mather throwing passes, and I mean we wore these two guys up. Kelly turned out to be a great defensive back. And I don't know if it was because of his throwing passes or not, but he used to get out there on defense and try to make Mather look bad, which is maybe why he was, turned out so darn good on defense. The other people I helped coach were what's called the twos, inside linemen. I had Flores, Baker, Marsh, and Fortune. And all of these guys are real varsity potential. But if the most valuable player, or not player, but the most valuable man on the sophomore squad, I'd have to give the award to Coach Rogers, the manager. That's the best manager. The varsity ought to do real well with this bunch of receivers. This ought to really rack up their passing game. Thank you.
Just looked at my watch and realized time's running on. I was going to do sort of what Carl did and rehash the season. Let me just real briefly go through some of the high points and low points. This might not mean too much to some of the parents, but you know, these things are core sort of memories for the kids. These are the things that occurred to me when I jotted some things down. Ignore the paper. I'm nearly blind here, and I'm used to having a podium in front of me where I'm leaning out my foot upright. I've never seen that podium before. Locked in it 6 hours a day. I can't remember anything about Barstow. Maybe I just, well, I was close with 14 to 12. I think our special teams won that, as I remember. I think we told you that would happen, didn't we? First game was mistakes, we got a few less. Then there was a trip to Bishop. I guess I enjoyed that because of the picnic we had up at Independence Creek. We do some strange things. Some of you guys better learn how to pack lunch. We don't eat at school. We get on the bus and go and find parks and creeks. You know, eat a lot of bananas and apples. I hope some of you mothers are listening, because some of these kids try to sneak in a sandwich or two and all this terrible stuff they're not supposed to have. The other thing I remember about Bishop was halftime. I think we were ahead at halftime, Mike. Is that right? But we went out and we didn't even go in the locker room. We set them out in the grass under a tree. I'm an old Aggie. I like the fresh air. I feel more comfortable in that. And there's some kids up against the fence, and I don't think they'd been to the game yet. And they were just in absolute disbelief. None of our players could see them, but their eyes got big, because they were hearing things they hadn't heard too often, even in pool rooms. They didn't know how far behind Burroughs was, but it must have been a bunch, because those kids were really getting ripped. And remember why that is, because I guess the American ethos is winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. I don't believe in that. I really think it's how you play the game, and we weren't playing as well as we were capable of. I don't care what the score was, we were capable of playing better than that. They had 80 guys out there, and we came up with 30, but we were still making them look better than they were. And like a number of times, boy, we came roaring out in that third quarter, and we pounded them. Well, we let out a little bit again. We still never played the perfect game. I never smiled, did I? Terrible. I got used to that after a while. But there was something good about that trip. Thanks to our Latin lovers that we had at the team, we were a little delayed, that we were going to leave a little early and try to get back to Ridgecrest before the sun came up, but we couldn't find 2 or 3 of our athletes. We were somewhere lost in the Bishop Pep Squad or something like that. All went up and had to walk back to Ridgecrest. But that helped us out because they used up a lot of energy and became very hungry to start the room that we had to stop. And the only town between here and Ridgecrest that was open, it was Big Pine, so we got to stop at a 7-Eleven, and I'd never been to suburban Big Pine before. It was really kind of a marvelous treat. We cruised around Old Yeller and these dark streets, and there's some lovely houses back there if you've never been there. And especially 11 o'clock at night. You'd be surprised about the nightlife in that little town. Galen, thanks a lot for your suggestion. That was really appreciated. I hope you enjoyed the back of the bus, Coach Everett. Then there was Miraless, one of the tragedies of the year. And all I have to say is that was the game of lead penalty. We were kind of irate about that. I think Coach Everett got a flag, didn't he? That was a weird flag. He didn't get a flag for saying something unkind to the officials. He got for saying something unkind to our own people. We never did figure that one out exactly. But the call I think they made was correct. Those guys never make a mistake. We remember that next year. Although I've never seen it happen where we're deep in our territory and we have a 4th down, we complete a pass. Why did we throw that ball? Because Randy was told in those circumstances that the guy's not covered until we completed it, right? And somebody went downfield and they called that and gave the ball to Miraless, and then they scored. And they won by 1 point. Because before that happened, somebody probably didn't block who they were supposed to on one of those extra points that we got blocked all season, and we lost a game that we should have won. Remember that next year. Every play is important. Now we bounced back. Maybe the game of the year. Puco Hills. God, I hate those guys. I wish we could play them again. I'd love to beat those guys. They're all so rich. They don't want any part of Ridgecrest. Geez, they came up. They almost didn't want to play us. As far as the coach wanted to forfeit the game. Thank goodness we have Burl Lillywhite. He's as bullheaded as that guy. Let's see what we can let him have his way. Then he wanted running corners. We let him do that in the second half. We still won 39-0. That was the game you remember where we ran special 1 and special 2, and it worked. Those things don't always work, but God, aren't they fun to try? Hillman, what a season. 1 pass, 1 completion, 1 TD. What a record. Retire on that, Steve. We tried them again a few times. They didn't always work as well. And we bounced back to the long trip to India. The score is forgettable. It was one of those things where we, didn't play real well in the first half, and I got on my soapbox and threatened to commit suicide or something. And My God, these kids came out and played football most of the second half, right? And then you went down just a little bit. And what happened? They blocked the field goal again, and ran it back all, you know. Remember, I don't want you to forget those things. That's you can learn something from those lessons. We beat them all game long and went down for 1 or 2 plays, but it wasn't a complete loss, was it? Because there was Paco. Yeah, this freshman didn't get there great. We got there real early that game and saw one of the great bands in California, probably. My God, if our football team practiced as hard as those band guys did, we'd make Canyon look silly. The winning streak. They were great. But they had one drummer, what was that? He played the timpani, is that what it's called? All those little, he was unbelievable. And, you know, we had 4 or 5 guys who wanted to emulate him, and certainly there was one that stood out that most deserved to be referred to for the rest of his life as Paco. He's not here tonight, is he? That's too bad. And of course, Paco came out and finally did it at halftime, and they're out there in close order drill. Those kids are not even blinking up and down. And, you know, column left, whoop, you know, they're out in the field. And God, wasn't that neat when Paco up and waved us? I always remember that. I wonder if he'll come to Ridgecrest when they come next year. I like that. Yeah. That's bad psychology. But it worked, didn't it? Not too loud. I don't need that thing. I just get fired up. It's a good thing I have this in class. I was dead in the first row. I use this like my old geometry teacher. You guys ever notice how my nose only twitches one way? You ever heard about some of you guys are getting old enough to be tech students of mine. We used to throw racers around the room. There's still marks in the back end, 50 on the wall, where those suckers bounced off. That was because I really had a big impression made about me, and you know, way back in, I don't know what, I was a sophomore in high school taking geometry in Jack Don's class, and I was right up there about 5 feet. So I looked at him, he had a stapler right in the nose. Oh. What happened? The teacher did that to a kid today. That'd be on the front page of Daily Independent, wouldn't it? The school board love that. Right in the middle of salary negotiations. Yeah, we get a, you know, we'd like to get a kid off with a 5% salary decrease. Anyway, we started talking about AV. Carl said the same thing. I guess those of us old timers, we go back a ways. That's class. Canyon's nouveau riche. AV is football. I hate those guys too. We don't hate Canyon or AV and Burroughs. We just love to beat them because, you know, they've been so good for so long. And boy, it was that week, and we had 3, 4 great practices. We didn't ever do that the rest of the year, and we came out and played good football. And they were at full strength that game. They didn't have to pull anybody up, and you know, I think everybody felt great. We are Burroughs, we beat AV. You remember that next year. You didn't do it again. Nobody looked. Some of you folks are wearing red out here. Don't do that next year. I don't like that color. Don't wear red next year. Kelly, get rid of that. Burn that jacket. Freshmen, don't wear red pants to football practice that week. Don't do that. It gets cold. And then there was homecoming week. That was kind of regrettable. We probably should have talked. So I can never figure out how those guys got beat by the same group, 36-0 as freshmen, with about 30 kids. They show up with 80 people, all of whom are 6'8" and 250 in the backfield. Look like they've been shaving twice a day for 4 years. There were some rumors going around about those guys, about how many juniors. I think Canyon's pulling some funny ones. That wasn't the worst week. Hell, we still had the tug of war, right? Yeah. We still had the speakeasy. That wasn't happening, right? Some of you guys spent all day in there. I don't know if you ever cleared those absences. And then, you know, if we didn't have Canyon, we wouldn't have goat crap to talk about, right? That's an inside joke for those. I don't know how that didn't get paid. Good old Harry Welch, he's always good for a coat. So August, we come back. Oh, everybody's sick. Hardly anybody can play that game. And we got played, except for 3 plays. Oh, that hurt more than any of it, didn't it? Remember that one. Remember that one. Gosh, I'd like to have that intensity the whole time. Oh, that was good. I got the live standing those. I like that. That was the one where they asked me. We played 5 homecomings in a row, didn't we? Something like that. I don't know, one time everybody wants to play Burroughs on their homecoming. What it is. So these Saugus girls, they're getting off the bus about the same time. We're there at 10 o'clock in the morning to play a 4:45 game or something. What do you guys do? And, we had this marvelous bonfire. Did you have a big bonfire at your homecoming? No, the forestry department wouldn't allow it. We burned down too many redwoods last year. Really? Why could we lose the guys that dumb? Litter racing's terrible. Steve Stankovic, Archie Football Dinner, great names. Carried the ball 9 times, 111 yards, 4 pass interceptions. Hard worker. He's in that weight room every day, all 110 pounds of him. I hope he does well next year, because we'll take real special pleasure in molding that guy. I don't think that I think his parents raised just a really fine young man. And of course, he gets a special award. We have some dentists in town, both of whom I coach, Dr. Craig Bear, Dr. Micah Bachman for my first football team. And, there's obviously nobody that's going to get qualifies for the Teeth Award, like Archie Football. Look at him, look at that smile. I'll tell you what, when he finally stopped smiling, because early before the Fort Sill game, he was sick. It's the only practice he missed all year, just half a day the week before. He was probably running about 110 temperature or something like this. And I think he was really ill. I didn't expect it. I expected him to be there next day. I didn't know how bad. Oh, I'm fine. I kept putting water in him. Yeah, I'm fine, coach. I could tell warming up he wasn't, quite Archie. I can play. Boy, when he came out, we came on the field and we were going to receive. He looked at me, he wasn't smiling. Coach, I'm not sure I can play offense. Well, I knew he was sick. I'm not sure why he didn't let him play defense at all. He hung in there, did the best. He was shaking with the second half. Tough kid. Jeff Plaisance. He provided me with one of my worst days ever as a football coach. I mean that very seriously. I don't mean anything that he did on the field. It was something that happened often. Oh my goodness.
First, we would like to present to Mr. and Mrs. Madden for an outstanding service, third year after presentation. We'd like to present this plaque to them.
Good reason for having to fall around.
That's one is for the man who, without him, we couldn't have done it at all. Who stuck on our butts all year long and coached us the best he could, which is the best that there is, and that's Coach Ron.